Hi everyone. So today what our goal is I want to show you kind of from the beginning to the end how to actually write a research essay. And so what I've done is I've just picked a topic. So let's just say Canada is the best country in the world. I know I'm very biased, but that's okay. And what I've done is I've tried to find 3 different sources of information so you guys can see what's going on. Again, it would be ultimately better if I could use books, but again, for the interest of copy pasting, it's just easier for this demo video than with a book. So what we're going to do with this is my topic. This is my, I guess my argument for my essay. But as you guys can see at this point, this is all I have. Is I've got 3 sources kind of picked out. I've got my my topic, and then that's it. I don't even necessarily have arguments formed yet. So I just want to show you how this works. So this is the first one I've got. It's Canada Wikipedia. Then there's a newspaper article, and it says #2 ranking on index makes Canada one of the world's best countries. And then I've got Stats Canada. I've got a chart. Just so you guys can see exactly what goes into finding facts. This is not intended for like university level papers. This is for somebody who's starting off. Maybe it's high school, maybe it's middle school. And they want to begin the fact gathering process. So here we go. Let's go start with Canada and Wikipedia. So this is truly my first time reading through this, and what my goal is just to see any interesting facts that I could use to argue that Canada is the best country in the world. So here we are. This is just starting off. Canada is a country in the northern half of North America. Yeah, that's great, but it's not enough to argue that we're the best country in the world. Making the world's 2nd largest country by total area. That's kind of an interesting fact. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to go down here, and I'm just going to say that it is the second. Oops, what am I doing? So the 2nd largest country by land. What was it? Land area? What was this? By. Am I not finding this? What a moron! I can't find it. Where did it just go? Second, right total area. Okay, by land area. So, and then I'm going to just write in brackets Wikipedia, so I don't forget. Wikipedia, W-I-K-I, spelling this right? Wikipedia. Okay, so I don't forget where I got this fact from. Okay, let's keep reading. What else? In the 4th, what is the difference? By total area in the 4th? Oh, by land area. Oh, okay, hang on. So not by land area. So we're going to go, it's the 4th largest country by land area. And it's actually, I almost got that fact wrong. The 2nd largest country by total area. And again, if you're like, what is the difference? My guess is it is water, and they're just looking at oceanfront. So, Canada is sparsely populated, which is again a really interesting fact. Again, if you wanted to say that it's really nice to live here, you don't really have to live right next to your neighbors. There's lots of room. So I'm going to write Canada sparsely populated. So, and because it's in direct quotations, I'm going to say Canada is sparsely populated. My dictionary is set to French, as you guys can see down here, which is why everything's going to look like a mistake, but whatever, it's not. Wikipedia. Okay, let's carry on. We have lots of mountains, blah, blah, blah. Da, da, da. So this is interesting. 82% of our population is located near the southern border. Interesting, but I don't know if I could ever actually use that as an argument to say that we're the best country in the world. Talking about interesting cities, again, interesting facts, but it doesn't necessarily make up why we're the best country. Thousands of years, lots of people living here. French claims the area, colony, blah blah blah. Interesting history, but I can't really use this for my argument. Independence. This is a little bit historical. I kind of want current stuff. Okay, so the country is officially bilingual at the federal level. I know in terms of the world, that's really not anything really special, but I'm just going to say officially bilingual. You know what? I'm just going to change the dictionary. Can I change it? Let's see. Let's go English, Canada. This is default. Yes, okay. So officially bilingual. Let's just go Wikipedia. No, I don't want this. I want this. Okay. So, what else do we have? Where did I get to? So, its advanced economy is the 11th largest in the world. That's an interesting fact. Okay, so advanced economy is the 11th largest in the world. by Wikipedia. Again, another interesting fact. I mean, we might want to say that we're the best country just because we're the 11th in terms of economy. Doesn't necessarily take away from the fact that we're the best. It's just maybe harder to argue. That's okay. Okay. Is a federal parliamentary democracy, the fact that we're a democracy, and a constitutional monarchy. Let's just focus on the fact that we're a democracy. So again, I'm just going to write the word democracy. Hang on, democracy. I'm not putting it in quotation marks because it's just one word. But I still have to put in my reference so I know where it came from. So let's carry on. We have the product of large-scale immigration. So let's just say we are ethnically diverse. So let's go. I think I said ethically, but it's ethnically. Sorry, ethnically diverse. So let's go. Ethnically diverse. Wikipedia. And what else can we find? Relying on natural resources. Great. We are a developed country. That's kind of nice to know. Developed country. Wikipedia. What else do we find? So this is interesting. It ranks among the highest in international measurements of government transparency, civil liberties, quality of life, economic freedom, and education. That's a really interesting fact. So I'm actually just going to copy this whole link right here. And I'm just going to put it right in here. And then I'm going to go in brackets, Wikipedia. And then I'm going to put in my quotation marks so I remember that those are not my words. And I want to write down Wikipedia so I remember where I get it from. What else do we have? I'm part of several major international and intergovernment organizations. So let's go. This whole paragraph is really quite interesting. So I'm just going to copy this entire chunk and I'm going to put it right down here. So again, what I might do is just so I don't get confused here, I'm just going to leave spaces. So, and then at the very, where am I going? Home and Wikipedia. So what I've got right now, I'm just going to save this. It's just a whole bunch of facts. Nothing that's really organized, nothing that's necessarily logical, but I've got a really interesting compilation of ideas here. If you guys look at this article, like look just even at the scroll bar, how massive this document is. So I can easily come back and get more facts from here. So let's now go to this article and see what other kind of facts I've got here. And I'm going to note that this is from the Ottawa Citizen, so that when I'm trying to reference things, I know what to say. So let's just read through this and see what it says. So, as it stands, we're a not too shabby second in the newly released Social Progress Index, trailing only defended far ahead of the United States, a much richer nation, blah, 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 blah. So, let's go trailing only after trailing only. So, and then I'm going to copy paste this, and I'm going to put this down here. And again, as you're going to see, I don't have to move it too far away from my other facts because I'm simply going to write down at the end that I got it from the Ottawa Citizen. And because I'm only using these three, I don't necessarily have to write down my URL or any of the other information yet because I know that's the only thing from the Ottawa Citizen that I'm citing. So let's go back and see what we see. Nice little advertisement here. Okay, so this is interesting. So the index, I'm actually just going to take this whole paragraph because it's got some interesting information in it. I'm just going to bring it over here to my document. So I'm going to take my fact, I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to write in Ottawa Citizen. I'm going to go back, see what else I like here. One of the worst, most progressively, one of the best. Oh, look at this. This is a great fact that totally says exactly what it is that I'm trying to prove. So I'm going to take this exact quote, and I'm going to copy paste it into my document. And so here we go. And then I'm going to put this in Ottawa Citizen. And again, you can see it's really not formally written. It's not fancy. It is, at this point, just a compilation of facts. This is true, but whatever. I'm not going to use that fact. What else do we have? Let's go to cell phone subscribers. That's actually really funny. Very simple aspect of social progress effects. That's really funny. That's a tough fact. That's really funny. We have to work on our cell phones. That's really funny. Canada's ranks first. Okay, so Canada ranks first in the world in access to advanced education. That is awesome. So I'm going to take this fact and I'm going to put it in a Word document. So here's my document. I'm going to put my quotations around it so I remember it's not mine. Ottawa Citizen. And then I'm going to go back to my website. Let's see what else we can say. And the number of years women spend in school, on average 15.5. So Canada is a clear number one there. So this is really actually interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this idea of that they've said here. They've really in other words, they're basically saying women spend a lot of time in school. But they haven't actually directly said that. But I'm going to take that idea and I'm just going to say like women spend a lot of time in school. And then again, Ottawa Citizen. Because they didn't actually directly say it, but I still have to reference where I'm getting my fact from. So, yeah, I still have to reference that. We also have the lowest level of violent crime and lead the world when it comes to religious tolerance. That's really interesting. So I'm going to take this fact here, and I'm going to put it right here. So, and again, as you guys can see, there's really nothing that is, nothing that's super organized yet. It really is truly just a page of facts, but this font difference is bugging me, so I'm going to change it all to this one. Okay, let's go back. Though we're number 2 on personal rights, we scored first on all but one of the indicators that make up that measure, including political rights, freedom of speech, and freedom of assembly. Okay, that's fantastic. So again, another great fact. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to put it right here. Oh, there's that horrible font again. Okay, so, and then Ottawa Citizen. So I've got some pretty decent facts here. I could spend all night looking at facts, but I don't want to. So let's go ahead now to our next little webpage here. And this is Stats Canada. The nice thing about Stats Canada is it's true, it's factual, it's referenced, it's something that you can rely on, it's academic. Wikipedia is a tricky one. Wikipedia is actually, it's a great starting point. But you really have to treat everything written on Wikipedia as though it was written by an internet troll. It's not, it's likely that what's on there is probably within reason, but not always. And so just, if you see a fact on there, great, use that as your starting point and then try and find somewhere else that repeats that fact. So this is interesting. So this here is a chart I only looked at for like 3 seconds before bringing this up. But it's kind of interesting to see. So if we make sense of this chart, it's showing that the employment rate is on this axis, and then over here is this population with college or university by percentage. So they've not only got a few countries, but the red little diamond things, those are provinces and territories. So it even shows within our country how well we do, but then these like purple ones rank in comparison to other countries. So if we look here where Canada is, it's quite interesting. So population with university or college, like we're like 50. That's really, really high. When you compare like Japan, United States, like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, like this is actually really impressive. If this is accurate, which I'm going to assume it is because it's Stats Canada, and I'm going to assume I'm reading it right, we've done really well here. In terms of our employment rate, though, not so great if you actually look, because employment rate goes up and down. And Canada is down here at like, what is this, 80, more than 1%. I'm really bad at numbers. But like Norway is like way up here, like 91%. So, we've got room to budge here. So let's just focus on the fact that Canada has 50% of their population with college or university. So let's add this as a fact here. So we're going to say 50%, oh, that's terrible. 50% of the population has university or college education. Let's just even clarify the Canadian population has university or college, and I'm going to go Stats Canada so that I don't forget where I got this stat from. Maybe though we should also just talk about employment rate, because Japan is generally a country that people look at as like a very successful country, and the fact that we have a higher employment rate than Japan, I think is something to talk about. The fact that we also have a higher employment rate here than the United States, that's something to talk about. We're just going to ignore all these other countries that have done better than us, and we're just going to focus on these countries that have not done so well, comparatively. So we're going to say that Canada has almost 82%, because I actually can't read this chart. I don't know what to make of this. So let's just say almost 82% employment rate. So here we go. Almost 82% employment rate. And then we're going to say, we have to compare it though, compared to the USA, which appears to have 81. Like if I follow this along, that's kind of what it looks like, 81. So let's say compared to US at 81%, and then compared to Japan at just shy of 80%. So let's say, and compared to Japan at, let's say, just shy of 80%. And again, we could say also Italy, who is not quite, let's just say at 79. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. I can't really read this line. It looks maybe like it's over 79. Over 79%. And Italy at 79%. And again, I still have to reference, so stats Canada. So this is now, I'm just going to save this. Oops. Let's just say these are the facts I'm going to work with. If I were writing a 40-page paper, this would not be enough. If I were writing a 1.5-page paper, this would probably actually be too much. So I'm just going to kind of start and see where we get, and we're going to go from there. So my first step was gathering facts. My second step is I now need to organize my facts into categories. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to organize my information into categories. So how I would go about doing this, if this were me, is I would, of course this is me, what a stupid comment, okay. I'm just going to look through all the comments, the facts that I have, and try and actually make sense of what's going on. So here I'm talking about the fact that we're big, we're not squished with our other neighbors in our country, we have 2 languages going on, we've got a pretty decent economy, we have a democracy, we're ethnically diverse, we're a developed country, we've got a lot of fantastic freedoms. We're a member of a lot of organizations and groups that do a lot of good things and try and, I guess, help the world and, I guess ourselves at the same time. We're doing pretty well. What is this? Healthcare. So I guess if I really had to divide this up, there's a few categories I could say. And my goal is I want, let's say, 3 even paragraphs, 3 even clumps of information. So if I broke it up into, let's say, government, then let me just, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take out all of the facts that relate to government, and I'm going to put them up here. And we're going to see, I'm going to put developed country and government, but I might actually move that later. Who knows? Our economy, sure, I'm going to relate that to the government, but again, I can change this around later. Government transparency, civil liberties, okay, like that makes sense. This can go up here. Ton of different facts about groups we're a part of. This says we're not too shabby second on the new. You know what? Here's the unfortunate thing. Oh, here. I was going to say, I forget what this actually means. Like, we're not too shabby second, like, with what? But I guess this is total. I don't have to put that in with government, so I'm not going to. What is this? Care? Healthcare, housing, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's take this guy and we're going to put it up here. Now, as you guys can see, I now have references from Wikipedia, but also now I've got my Ottawa Citizen reference in here. So I've got a bunch of different references, even though they're from different areas, but they're on the same theme. One of the world's most socially progressive and best countries to live in. So if we were to say social, so let's say government, I might create a new category and just call it social. I might change it later. I'm going to take this fact and move it here because it's a really interesting fact. What else? We're officially bilingual. I mean, that is a government thing, but let's just say we're relating this more just to the day-to-day kind of people. Ethnically diverse. I keep saying ethically. What else do we have? Canada suffers in access to education, which is a government thing. As you guys can see, one of my dilemmas, as I can see already, is I got a ton on government and not a ton on social, and I don't even know what my last category is going to be. I'm actually just going to move my margins so I can fit more information on a page. Your university or high school professor might say don't mess with the margins, but whatever. Okay, women spend a lot of time in school, so this is interesting. As much as it's I'm going to move this education fact in here because now I've got 2 things to do with education. And I don't want government to have a million things going on and social to only have a little bit. So let's see, what else do we have? So personal rights, political rights, freedom of speech. This is still, a government fact. Violent crimes. So maybe this is a social thing. I mean, again, I know the government has a say in controlling this, like when it comes to like gun legislation and prisons and all that kind of stuff. But I'm gonna for now put it in social and just see what happens. 50% has university or college. So I'm actually starting to find a really interesting trend. I've got a lot to do with education, and I don't necessarily have to put that in social. So I might, just for now, education. I'm just going to create a different category. So let's move this and see what this looks like. So I've got education, this, and women spend a lot of time in schools. So this is actually turning out to be not so shabby. I got a bunch on government, a bunch on social, a bunch on education. Then I have, okay, so sparsely populated. I'm going to move this to social because that just means like you don't have a lot of people living in the same area. Even though we do actually, sorry, that means that's bad. You take the entire size of Canada and the number of people, and you divide it up evenly, and each person gets a lot of land, is what that means. So, I mean, yes, that's done by the government. Like, all of this could, in theory, fit in with the government. So I might have to actually change the government title to something else later. But whatever, this is just the beginning. What is this? Employment rate. That's a tricky one, because I could put it into social, I could put it into government. I don't know. Let's just put it into social for now and just see what happens. So what I'm left with is I've got some facts here. The fact that we're a large country by area, I don't know where to put that. Like, I know that goes with we're sparsely populated, so maybe I can put this here, but that's not really necessarily a social fact, if that makes sense. But who knows? Maybe that'll kind of introduce this other fact. And then, as it stands, we're not too shabby second. You know the problem with this? I took this fact because I thought it was great, but I don't know how would I ever use this? I mean, I guess in total they're saying we're second. So maybe what I might do, maybe I'm going to take this. I'm going to put it up at the beginning. So I can use that maybe in my introduction. The dilemma I'm going to find, though, is that it really relates to nothing in specific. It just in total. So now what I've got a dilemma. I've got a bunch of quotes about government, a bunch of quotes about social, and not a lot about education. So at this point, what I need to do is I need to go back and do more research. So I'm going to go to my Wikipedia thing, which I know Wikipedia is such a fallback, but there's got to be something in here on education. Look at this. Demographics, education. So let's just see. Take us right here. We need some more facts. So, Canada is the most educated. Look at this. According to a 2012 report, Canada is the most educated country in the world. That's interesting. A little surprising. Only because I know places like Norway and Finland tend to do really well on those tests. So, let's see. According to blah, 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 blah. And let's go Wikipedia. Wikipedia. So this is where number one in access to advanced education. Interesting. So most educated. Okay, so fair enough. So maybe we're the most educated. Maybe we don't rank the best on tests, but fair enough. Who knows? We'll figure that out later. Okay. The country ranks first worldwide in the number of adults tertiary education, with 51% of Canadians having attained at least... Okay, so we already have this fact. This is really interesting. Canadians spend about 5.3% of its GDP on education. The country invests heavily in tertiary education. 49% of adults earn a high school degree. Okay, this is interesting facts, but it's a little dense. Hang on. It's been available. This is an interesting fact. Education in both English and French has been available in most places across Canada. So, there's reality, and then there's then there's what we're going to say. But we're just going to use this fact. Education in both English and French has been available. This is true. It's been available. It doesn't mean that they're the same. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily treated equally financially. But let's just go Wikipedia, so we don't forget where we got this fact from. And again, as you guys can see, all of my facts have references so that, and later, so again, look here, Stats Canada, Ottawa Citizen, Wikipedia. I've got 3 references, but they're all to do with education, so they're all in the right place. Canadian provinces, okay, for education. Mandatory school ages, contributing to an adult literacy rate of 99%. That is insane. Okay, so an adult literacy rate of 99%. That's pretty impressive. So let's take this, we're going to put this here under education. So, great little fact, Wikipedia. So I am now basically done my I believe, let's say second step. Right? My first step was finding facts, and then now my second step was grouping my facts. And I'm pretty pleased with how I've grouped my facts. Let's just call that a day. So now my next step is I need to put the facts within my paragraph in order. And there's a lot of your opinion that's going to go into this. There's a lot of humming and hawing that you're going to have to do to make sense of this. So let's start with maybe our smaller paragraph. And let's actually just also change the font so that it looks the same. I'm going to start with easiest to hardest because that's just how I like to work. And education has the least amount of facts, so I'm going to find that easiest. So let's start here. So let's look at our facts now. So 50% has university or college education. Canada ranks first in the world in access to advanced education. Women spend a lot of time in school. According to 2012, Canada is the most educated country in the world. Education in both English and French has been available, and an adult literacy rate of 99%. So I think what we need to do is again, we need to remember when we write our paragraphs, we want to start with a really interesting fact, and we want to end with a really powerful fact. So to me, I think one of the most important facts, where did I get it? Canada is the most educated country in the world. I'm going to highlight this in bold. I'm going to just make this bold. And then this is really another interesting, powerful statement. One of the dilemmas that we have is when we have an essay, if we have every fact a direct quote, it makes it look like we just have a list that's been strung together with extra words to create a paragraph. Like it doesn't necessarily read like a smooth, fluid essay. But on the other hand, if we only have quotes that are integrated into our writing, like we put it into our own words, then it's not always as powerfully written because then we don't use the words that are probably already the best chosen. So what I'm going to do is at any given time, if let's say I have half, like these are all my facts for education, I'm not going to use more than half in direct quotes. So I'm going to decide which ones to get rid of. I can change the quotations after, but right now I know that I'm going to keep this one in quotations, and I know I'm going to keep this one in quotations. So what I'm going to do is I like this one, so I'm going to move this to the end because again, if you end your paragraph with a powerful idea, you're going to leave an impression with the reader. But again, you also want to make an impression at the beginning. So what I've done is I've taken my two most powerful statements and I've moved them to the outer edges of my paragraph, as you guys can see here. I'm just going to highlight education in yellow so you guys can see that it's separate from the fact. So now I'm going to make sure that it flows. So we've got first, in terms of access, not only do we have access, but now we have access to this education. Women have access. We have access to language. We have access to literacy. And then we're the most educated. So you know what? It actually kind of flows nicely if you turn, so education, and let's just go ACCESS. I hope I spelled that right, access. And again, we have to remember, let's go back here. It says Canada is the best country in the world. What am I going to highlight this? Let's just go blue. Oh, that's actually really hard to read. Whatever, let's make this go yellow. Canada is the best country in the world. We have to remember that, and let me actually copy paste this. When we're making our argument, I'm going to paste this right down here. This is our thesis statement. So that when we're writing, we don't forget that we have to reference this idea. And again, I'm going to put it here so we also don't forget it here. And I'm going to put it up here so we don't forget it when we're doing this guy as well. So now, Canada is the best country in the world. I can't just simply start with a quote. I mean, I guess I could. I shouldn't say I can't, but I'm not going to. I want to say, I need to kind of introduce the idea while also referencing this, like, Canada is the best country in the world. So I'm going to say Canada is, I can even just start with saying Canada is the best country in the world and then reword it later if it sounds too repeated. So Canada is the best country in the world, especially in regards to our education. What I've done here is I've taken Canada is the best country in the world. I've taken this idea from here, and then I've taken the idea of education, and I'm putting it right over here. So I've got my thesis statement right here, but I'm also letting my readers know with what my topic sentence is of my paragraph right here, okay? So what I need to do is I can either introduce my quote or I can have the quote and then kind of explain it, introduce it, whatever after. So let's read again. So we have Canada is the best country in the world, especially in regards to our education. Canada ranks first in the world in access to advanced education, due in part to our 27 globally ranked universities. I like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to I'm going to put a period in here. I'm going to worry about this later, but my actual formatting. And what am I going to do? The next one I'm going to say, 50% of the Canadian population has university or college education. So I need to take an idea from this quote and kind of explain it a bit in order to tie it into the next fact. Otherwise, it's going to feel like what we call a laundry list, where it's like fact, 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 or like a shopping list. You know, and bacon, potatoes, eggs, blah, blah, blah. You can't just go thing, and then carry on. It's got to be like, oh, we need bacon because we're going to make a salad. We need, I don't know, bacon salad. Stupid. We need potatoes because we're going to make a potato salad. Like, you have to do a little bit of explaining in between. So Canada ranks first in the world in access to advanced education, due in part. And by the way, I'm just going to get rid of the bold so that you don't think it has to be there. So as, let's just say, Canadians, we are fortunate in that we can access many free services and opportunities for advancement. So again, I'm trying to kind of clarify what's going on here. What is this? Why is this double underlined? Who knows? I don't even know. What is this saying? It's Canadians. Oh, comma. Oh, I guess that makes sense. Okay, it's Canadians, comma. We are fortunate, comma. So that's actually, you know what? That's a really good point. There's too many commas. As Canadians, we are fortunate in that we can access many free services and opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, that's way too much. So let's get rid of this comma. So as Canadians, we are fortunate in that, there we are. One comma, probably a little bit smoother. So this fact here, this is tricky. If I reword it, then I don't have to have it in a direct quote. So let me I'm going to attempt to reword it and see what happens. So I'm going to say, half of all Canadians are educated at a post-secondary level. To me, this essentially summarizes this. Like, I don't think that if somebody read this, they wouldn't say, oh, that doesn't relate to this. So I'm not stating university or college education, but to me that's post-secondary. But I don't want them to think it's just simply like a certificate that's like a 2-month thing. Half of all Canadians are educated at a post-secondary level. I might have to actually change that. Half of all Canadians are educated, let me just say, at a university or college level. There we are. I've not copied the words too much that I'm going to be accused of plagiarism, but I still have my fact the same. So now I can actually get rid of this. But oops, sorry, got my bracket. I have to keep my fact in there, or my reference in there. Otherwise, people are going to be like, "Did you just make that up?" And I'm like, "No, I got it from Stats Canada." So I'm going to say this is impressive. And then, because I want my reader to actually be like, it is impressive. I'm going to say, when we consider the fact that 50%, percent of our population is educated beyond secondary school. So hang on, this is impressive when we consider the fact that 50% of our education is beyond. I actually don't know what I'm trying to say. When we consider the fact that 50% of our population is educated beyond secondary school, blah, 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 blah. I actually don't know what I want to say here. So I'm going to leave a line so I remember to come back to this. But again, where did I take my fact? No, I've got these facts up here. Let's actually just go back to our chart so we can get our facts. Where is it? 50% is population with college or university. Japan, it looks like they're at what, 44, 45? So let's say 44%. So when we consider the fact that 50%, hang on, this is impressive. It is particularly interesting to note that, let's say that 50% of our population is educated beyond secondary school, compared to another impressively advanced and modernized society, Japan, who has, I'm going to write it wrong, but then I'm going to go back and fix it, who has only 40, what was it, 45? Where are we? Japan, 44%. Okay, so this is impressive. It is particularly interesting to note that 50% of our population is educated beyond secondary school, compared to another impressively. See, I've already actually said impressive twice, so let's do synonym check here. So for impressive, this is inspiring, This is inspirational. Let's look at inspirational. I know that sounds cheesy, but whatever. This is inspirational. It is particularly interesting to note that 50% of our population is educated beyond secondary school compared to another impressively advanced and modernized society, Japan, whose, let's say, population has only, where only, let's go, 44% of the population has met the same educational attainments. So I think that's pretty good. Now again, I have to talk about women spending a lot of time in school. In a lot of countries in the world, this is not necessarily a right. So I think it's important that we focus again on the fact that for Canadians, it's a right to have access to education. So I'm even going to write that. For Canadians, access to education is a right. Because again, I'm trying to argue why it's the best country in the world. This again makes, is a right. Okay, so this again makes Canada the best country in the world, as we do not see education as a privilege. Although some would argue that we treat secondary education or post-secondary education as a privilege, or whatever. Okay, this again makes Canada the best country in the world, as we do not see education as a privilege, but rather a foundational right. Foundational right. So I'm going to save this. An example of this, because what I've done is I've made an interesting fact. I'm saying that for Canada, for Canadians, access to education is a right. By the way, you've probably noticed I've made a few mistakes. I'm going to have to go back and check before I'm finished with this. So, for Canadians, access to education is a right. This again makes Canada the best country in the world, as we do not see education as a privilege, but rather a foundational right. Let me just synonym check right. Yeah, I'm not going to use that right now. Okay. An example of this is the fact that, and I'm going to take my idea that women spend a lot of time in school. Ottawa Citizen. I'm going to say when a country values, and then I'm going to italicize all of its citizens and their, so hang on. When a country values all of its citizens, I'm just going to say they, I want to say like it proves that they're really good, but that sounds lame. So when a country values all of its citizens, not they, I'm going to say it manages to flourish. And instead of manage it, it flourishes. Right, it flourishes. Not only do all genders, I don't know if that's really the word I want to use, but let's say not only do all genders have equal access to education, but we also have, and I want to say education in both English and French has been available in most places across Canada. I like this fact, but it's not powerfully written enough that I have to keep it written like that. So I'm going to say, I need to basically reword this, but I'm going to say we also have, but we also, as Canadians, just so I'm really clear who the we is, have access to education in, see, if I were to say education in both English and French, I'm actually plagiarizing because that's too many words in a row. We have access to, how am I going to say this? We can have, but we also as Canadians, can choose to be educated in either French or English. There, as you guys can see, this idea right here is basically this idea, but I've reworded it enough that they can't say I've plagiarized it so long as I reference it. So, get rid of this, Wikipedia. Okay, so again, now I have to take the idea of the fact that we can have French or English, and now I need to relate it to literacy. So I'm going to say, I don't know what I'm going to say yet. I'm thinking out loud here. Something like, as Canadians, we can be educated in either English or French, but we can also, or maybe I'm going to say, perhaps it is because, the word perhaps is such a great essay word. I like it because you're not being too committal, but you're still suggesting an idea. So perhaps it is because of this value placed on education that there is, and I'm actually going to keep this quote, an adult literacy rate of 99%. I don't know how I would say it any better than this. I really like how they've said it. So that there's an adult literacy rate of 99%. So let me just look here. Let's just count direct quotes. I've got one direct quote here and no other direct quotes. So I think I'm actually going to be able to keep this direct quote without it looking like I've got too many. But this direct quote, I'm going to reword a little bit of it, but then keep what's in bold. So I'm actually curious, only now that I've read this 99, if any country is 100% or if 99 is as high as it goes. But I don't have a fact on that, so I'm not even going to get into that. Anyways, perhaps it's because of this value placed on education that there's an adult literacy rate of 99%. As such, it is, I don't know, I'm just going to make a general statement. It is, let's just say good, but I'm going to reword this, to acknowledge that, and I want to say, actually, you know what? I'm just going to keep this. I'm going to keep this quote. According to a 2000 report by the, I'm just going to get rid of this remove hyperlink because I don't want it in blue. It looks weird. I'm going to get rid of the blue. And then there we go. I've got my reference. So as such, it is good to acknowledge. You guys can see this looks silly. It's basic, but it was a placeholder, so I know to go back and fix it. So as such, it is, let's just say important, or it is, I don't want to say wise, because then that sounds like maybe my reader's not being wise, and I don't want to accuse them of not being wise. I don't know. So as such, it is, sure, let's just say important to acknowledge that according to blah, 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 blah. The dilemma is I've gone from a fact to another fact, and I've not done a whole lot in between, and I really want to end on this, and I feel like it's not going to be as powerful if I go fact. So I kind of want to space this out. So where it says as such is important to blah blah blah, I need to put something in here. I'm just going to say a population that is almost entirely literate is capable of, let's say, progress. And let me just, what's a synonym for progress? It's capable of growth, development, advancement. Look at that, of progress, development, and growth. Because again, I need to tie in the idea of adult literacy rate. And so making it a powerful and again, I would say good place to live, but that sounds too silly still. So making it a powerful and prosperous place to live. So I think I've done a little bit better of a job because now I've got a fact and then I've got some kind of cushion, some explanation going on. I almost, though, don't want to weigh down this fact by too many words that introduce it. So I am actually going to get rid of this little thing, and I'm actually just going to start with my quote. Some people might say, don't do that. They might say, no, you need a little, what do you call it? Transition word, but whatever. I'm not. I'm living dangerously. Okay, so when a country values all of its citizens, yeah, that's right. I don't know what I've done wrong here. What is it saying? Values all its citizens? All of. I like all of. Whatever. Okay, so now this paragraph is done. As you guys can see, I've now taken my facts and I've turned it into a paragraph. So what we would now do is do this for the rest of the essay. So we're going to do this. So let's now look at our social. So we've got Canada is unequivocally one of the world's most socially progressive countries and one of the best countries in the world to live. That's a great fact. I'm actually going to bold this because I know I want to start or end my paragraph with it. We're officially bilingual, ethnically diverse. We have the lowest rate of violent crime, kind of sparsely populated. This is interesting. We have a lot going on in here and it doesn't all necessarily relate. So let me just change things around a bit. Let's just say I'm going to start with the geography. And I'm going to say that I think it has an effect on society, our geography. Before I even forget, I'm just going to say geography affects society. So I don't forget why I'm talking about this. I think there's something to be said about the fact that if you're not in crammed locations, you're not going to be tempted to commit as much crime. So But then here it's saying it also has religious tolerance. So I like the fact that this relates into officially bilingual and ethnically diverse. The fact that we've got stuff going on with who our people are. And then again, I really like this fact. It's nice and strong, so I'm going to end with this fact, which then, let's just see if this makes sense, having this fact in here with an unemployment rate. This doesn't. As you guys can see, like, that's weird. It's weird to have this shoved in here. So let's put it in government, and we'll deal with it when we get to government. Not our problem now. So, we have to again talk about Canada as the best country in the world to live when it comes to the social factor. So, let's just say, when... Another thing I want to look at is I don't want my paragraphs to all start with the same word. So, for example, this one here starts with Canada. I don't want to start this paragraph with Canada. So even if I start with when, it's at least different enough that it makes it look like I know different words. So when we examine Canada's society, we can speculate, S-P-E-C-U-L-E, that the geography positively affects the population, because I'm just going to say population. If I said society here, then it would sound very repetitive because I've said society here. That's the only reason why I've changed it to population, okay? So, when we examine Canada's society, we can speculate that the geography positively affects the population. And again, I have to tie it into my thesis here, making Canada the best country in the world. The only dilemma I'm going to have is that I've already said here Canada's the best country in the world. If I can reiterate this, I should. So I should really be saying making Canada the, I wonder if there's a synonym for best? That'd be weird. The finest, the greatest, oh actually greatest, that works. The greatest country in the world. That's at least better than having best and best, otherwise it's too repetitive. So, Canada is sparsely populated. I want to keep this quote here, and I want to keep this in here just because it's a really long quote. Like, that's going to be too much work to try and reword. This is going to be kind of easy to reword because there's so few words. So I'm just going to say, for example, Canada has a low population density. And again, I don't want to forget where I got it from, so I'm taking my quote and I'm just bringing my reference up here. That's what it means, sparsely populated, low population density is the exact same thing. So, when we examine Canada's society, we can speculate that the geography positively affects the population, making Canada the greatest country in the world. Canada has a low population density. This almost sounds too short of a sentence. This, I'm going to have to talk about this. This can be very positive for many citizens as it reduces, it reduces the, what does it reduce? As it reduces discomfort, I don't know, and why else would you not want to be living right next to everybody? Discomfort and social congestion. I don't know, it sounds like a disease. Social congestion? I don't know. Let's leave it there for now, and we'll underline it so that we remind ourselves to come back to it. So, Canada, and I'm going to take this other fact here, is the second largest country by total area. I think we took that almost word by word, even though we didn't put it in quotations. Let's go back and check. Very, very top. Where did we get it? Where did we get it? Why can't I see it? I'm sure you guys are seeing it right now. I can't see it. Longest border, warm in the summer, forest, million people, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't know. Weird. Oh well. Okay, let's just assume it was directly quoted. And I'm going to change it anyways, because I don't want to accidentally plagiarize. So, Canada is the second largest country by total area. Let's not necessarily worry about land area because I'm a goof and I can't actually find my original fact. This is the problem, I can't find my original fact. I don't want to deal with this. It's going to be too much work to deal with. So I'm going to say Canada. I'm just going to worry about this and I'm going to have to rephrase it. Canada is the second largest country by. So I'm going to say when it comes to total area, Canada is the the not first. That's stupid. When it comes to total area, Canada is the. Oh, this is really going to bug me. I need to go back and find this. The second largest country. Let's just do Control F. Largest. Oh, here we are. Second largest country by total area. Is the world's second largest country by total area. I might actually have to keep this in direct quotations because I don't know how else. And did they actually use the number 2? They didn't. They wrote it out. So second is the. So second largest country by total area. I'm going to have to keep this in direct quotes only because I can't think of another way to say it, and I do not want to be accused of plagiarism. So, just because I need to now explain what this is in relation to population density, because of how large our country is, we are able to accommodate a growing population. Without having an enormously dense population. All I'm trying to do is just, no, it's not necessarily filler, but I just need to make it flow more. So it's not just like fact, fact, fact. So now we have another fact. This is interesting. So we have the lowest level of violent crime and lead the world when it comes to religious tolerance. This is such a great fact. So I'm going to make another suggestion, another idea. It is possible to assume that let's just say it's possible to assume that, let's go back up here, that geography, I'm just going to copy this, as you guys can see. I'm going to paste it here, but I'm going to reword it. That our physical geography, so not social geography, sorry, the physical geography, what did I do? Geography affects society. This is where now I can go back to saying society. And I'm going to put in my quote right here. We also have the lowest level of violent crime and lead the world when it comes to tolerance. So, here we are. Now I've got my quote, my direct quote. I've got to be really careful though, because I don't have too many direct quotes. Otherwise I look weak with my essay skills. And it just becomes like a list. So, we also have the lowest level of violent crime and lead the world when it comes to religious tolerance. Okay, so we need to now incorporate the idea of Canada being officially bilingual and ethnically diverse with very low levels of violent crime and very high levels of tolerance. So, let's just say, I'm just gonna type, and it's gonna come up kind of sloppy, but let's just see what happens. So, this is demonstrated. Not even demonstrated. I know already that's the wrong word, but demonstrated. No, this is seen. This can be seen. This can be seen when we look at the fact that Canada is officially bilingual. I'm going to get rid of the quotations because it's only 2 words, and it's not such a unique phrase that it's going to be an issue. This can be seen when we look at the fact that Canada is officially bilingual. Semicolon, I now have to explain how this relates to tolerance. By having let's just say, not 1, but 2 official languages, we prove to ourselves that we are capable of recognizing and valuing 2 different, let's say, cultures and I want to say ways of thinking, because you know how language and identity and thought, they're all kind of related. So evaluating 2 different cultures and identities. In addition to this, we are also very ethnically diverse. Canada is a cultural mosaic. This is definitely a term. I could get this fact from somewhere, but it's also common knowledge enough that I don't need to actually have a reference for this. So Canada is a cultural mosaic. We are a country. Let's just say we are a country of many. I know that sounds kind of poetic and sassy, but whatever. I like it. Canada, we are a country of many. Again, we still have to relate this to how we are the best country in the world by incorporating the values and identities of many nations in the world. And again, why did I say nation and not country? I don't know. I just think it sounds more like epic. So by incorporating the values and identities of many nations in the world, we grow stronger and more. We go stronger and more. Synonyms for stronger. What can we come up with? We go stronger and more robust and more robust. Now I can have my last quote because otherwise it's too much. So Canada is unequivocally one of the world's most socially progressive countries and one of the best countries in the world to live. So I don't want to end with these words because then that makes it look like that's the most important part of the sentence, and it's not. So I'm just actually going to move this right here. So I'm going to say Michael Green, Michael Green, the index's director, let's just say, was quoted as saying that Canada is unequivocally one of the world's most socially progressive countries and one of the best countries in the world to live. There we are. I now have successfully ended with my strongest quote, and I have finished my second body paragraph. So as you guys can see, I'm making progress, which is very exciting. So my last thing is now I need to go through government and try and put things in order and pick my favorite quotes. So the fact that our economy is the 11th is not a strong fact. I mean, it's great, but it's not. I'm not going to lead with that if I can find better. So it ranks among the highest in international measurements of government transparency. This is a great fact. I like this. So I'm going to put this in bold because I know I want to keep it. This is too big for me to keep. I mean, I could, but I don't want to. To me, it's just too massive. So what I might do, I need to get rid of this stuff because it's dense. There's a lot going on in here. And I really actually want to focus on the fact that we're part of the United Nations. I think that's a title that most people know. Yes, this is great. I don't know. It's too much. Too much. So I'm going to stick with this. I'm cutting the quote down because I'm cutting off stuff. Like it's not going to change the meaning of this quote. So Canada is a Commonwealth member of the Company. I'm going to get rid of Commonwealth of Nations only because I don't want to make it look like we're elitist, but I want to make it look like we're included in things. So I'm going to go Canada is, and then I have to put my quotations back in because this part is unchanged. I don't know what to do with this. I'll read this later. The index published blah, 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 using 50 healthcare. Canada ranks. Oh, this is tough. There's some really good facts, but they're really hard to work with. So, though we're number 2 on personal rights, we scored first on all but one of the 3 indicators that make it that measure, including political rights. This fact is really interesting, but I think I can easily break it apart. What is this? Almost 82%. This is interesting. This employment thing doesn't fit in. This is a tricky one. I'm just going to move this guy out of the way up to here. I'm probably not ever going to use it. Which happens. You find a good quote and then you're like, yeah, I'm not using it because it just doesn't fit. So I need to find a really strong quote that I'm going to keep. This is a really good quote. So if I already have a bolded quote for our country here, I might have to start with this. And then, because remember, it's like a sandwich. I gotta have the most interesting hook at the beginning and then the most powerful impression at the end. So I'm going to take out, instead of it, I'm going to say Canada, and then now I'm going to have my direct quotation. I'm going to remove this hyperlink because it's annoying. get rid of my bold because I know it's where I want it to be. So Canada ranks among the highest. So, oh, you know what? I forget where I got this quote from. Shoot, by cutting off the end, I got rid of it. So I'm going to Google the word ranks, and I'm really hoping it's in here. So let's go ranks. Here it is. Oh, thank goodness. Okay, ranks. So Wikipedia. That was a close one. So Wikipedia. So Canada ranks among the highest in international measurements of government transparency, civil liberties, quality of life, economic freedom, and education. But again, I don't know if I really want to start with a quote, especially because this one starts with the word Canada. The word Canada. I've got when, and then I've got the word Canada right there. I might just say, I'm going to start with the way a government takes care of its people is often an indicator of its international success and pride. Why not? I just need something fancy to kind of introduce the idea that it's government. Oh, but I didn't do the best country in the world. In this way, Canada's government is an exemplary, I don't know what I'm going to say, force in shaping our top position within the world. Our top, I don't want to say position, I don't have to think like geographical, even though like we are technically north, but I just want this to be really clear. So Canada's government is an exemplary force in shaping our top ranking there within the world. Oh, but then I've got the word ranks here and ranking. That's two. So our top, what? Let's do synonyms. Our top status there within the world. So now here's my quote. So I've introduced my paragraph. I've got the idea of government right here. I've got the idea of best country in the world with right here our top status. Now I've got my really interesting quote. Ranks among the highest because of government transparency, civil liberties, blah, blah, blah. So now I'm going to need to connect this with democracy. I'm going to say this is most likely due to... No, I'm not most, because that's going to make it look as the only factor. I'm going to say a key factor in this success is that Canada is a democracy. DMOCRA is a democracy. And I've got to put in, oops, did bring up my quote here, Wikipedia, my reference, sorry, is a democracy and then developed country. So we have an economy. Oh shoot, I didn't do this. I should have gone and made my quotes in order. I didn't do that. Saying that we have the 11th largest in the world, I don't really want to talk about that. I'm going to move this just out of the way for now. Only because when you start to give like numbers 11, like it feels a little more powerful when you're like number 1, number 3, number 4. To be like number 11, like it's great, but let's stick with single digits. So, oh, there was my reference that I chopped off earlier. Okay. So let's see. Canada is a member of the Francophonie and a part of several major international government. Okay, so let's just say because Canada is such... actually, no, not because it's blah, 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 it's part of the UN. I'm going to just say Canada's government is also present. Should we see our government? Sure, why not? No, that doesn't work. Canada is also represented internationally. It's also represented internationally, showing... No, I don't know if I want to say that yet. Is represented internationally. Canada is a member of the United Nations, because here it is, I'm saying including the United Nations, so it's not the exact wording, member of the United Nations, and the Francophonie. There we are, Francophonie. So Wikipedia. So this quote is now incorporated into the line right above, so I can get rid of this. So now I need to explain again how this makes it the best country in the world. This is actually harder than anything I've had to argue so far in this essay. Why does being part of the UN? Okay, so being a country that is dedicated to peacekeeping even though, like, I know there's a ton of other countries that are part of the UN, so it's the same argument, but being a country that's dedicated to peacekeeping shows how Canada is a special place to live. I don't know. Being a country that's dedicated to peacekeeping shows how Canada is a special place to live. Being part of an international linguistic, L-A-N-G-U-I-S, linguistic organization also shows, what does it show? It shows that we're not just like an exclusive elitist country, like we are a part of things. So I don't know, being part of an international linguistic organization also shows that Canadians value cooperation and inclusion. I don't know. So, what is this? The index published by the Social Progress Imperative, a US-based nonprofit, uses 53 indicators to measure such things as healthcare, blah, blah, blah. Canada ranks first or ties. Wow, that's a really powerful quote, but I can't have too many. Because what do I have here? Yeah, I've got a direct quote right here. And if I include this as a direct quote and that's a direct quote, then it's a laundry list. So somehow I have to reword this or chop extensively. So what can I say? I'm going to reword this. So the social progress imperative is a non-profit must have profit organization based, is an American, so it says US based, is an American, I'm just going to say an American non-profit organization. So these are, I'm just going to have to go Wikipedia, even though I'm going to chop this quote in two. I just don't want to make my sentence too long. I'm going to just call it the SPI. I'm just going to short form it. I don't know if I'm allowed, but I'm going to do it. Dangerous. Okay. The SPI publishes an index in which, what does it do? In which it compares the, what is it comparing? Which does it compares countries? In which it compares countries. Compares countries, let's say based on, I need to use 53 indicators in order to really make it the reference that I'm trying to get at. So the SPI publishes an index in which it compares countries based on 53 indicators. Again, it's another fact, so I have to reference it. The index often compares things such as, so healthcare, housing, policing, personal rights, and tolerance. Oh, look at this, 133 countries. So in which it compares 133 countries based on 53 indicators, so I can get rid of this idea, and I can get rid of all of this idea. And so this is kind of, oh shoot, I've been saying Wikipedia, but it's the Ottawa Citizen. Woo! That was bad. The Ottawa Citizen. Okay, good. Whew. So, the SPI publishes an index in which it compares 133 countries based on 53 indicators. The index often compares things such as, so what I might do is now, I can actually, it's short enough that I'm going to keep this. Canada ranks first on one of those. This way, it's not too long of a direct quote. By chopping out and like I kept the same facts as you will have seen, but by chopping out, like making it not a direct quote, it then makes the direct quote that much more powerful. So here's my dilemma. This is a really interesting quote, but I might actually be able to cut out some of this as well. On all but one of the indicators that I got that much including. So let's see if I can reword this, and if I can't, I'll keep the direct quote. So let's just see. Though we're number 2 on personal rights. Although Canada did not score first place when it comes to personal rights, I think that's kind of close enough without being direct quoting. Although although Canada did not score first place when it comes to personal rights, we did italicized because that's what I'm emphasizing when I speak. We did outperform. So what is this? We scored first on all but one of the indicators that make up that measure, including we did outperform, let's just say all other countries. What is this? Though we're number 2 on personal rights. I don't know if I can outright say outperform if they're saying all but one. Let's say almost all other countries when it comes to, so now I'm going to, on personal rights, we scored first on indicators and measure, So let's go on to measure including, so when it comes to political rights, freedom of speech, and freedom of assembly. There we are. I've now taken my big direct quote and made it much smaller and very powerful because it's now shortened and I'm not just going massive quote, massive quote, massive quote. So there we are. There is now our first body paragraph done. So the last thing we need to do is we need to decide. So I can get rid of yeah, I'm gonna get rid of this. I'm gonna get rid of this guy, and I'm gonna get rid of this guy. What I need to do now is decide, are they in the right order? Because again, it's not only do we sandwich like having this quote the most important and having this also an important one. We now have to decide, generally you're going to start with let's say you had to number them in terms of how important they are. The least impressive one should be in the middle. So I think having all of these facts about like actual numbers, that's kind of powerful. The social thing is interesting, but again, there's a lot of facts. So I think actually even the order I have is really good. Maybe I actually could even start with education and then finish with government, but I think because social is my weakest paragraph, I'm going to keep it in the middle. So now what I need to do is I'm going to go and write my introduction. Okay, so I'm now going to write my introduction. This is kind of tricky, but not so bad. I've got some interesting facts that I left aside. The fact that we're the 11th largest economy in the world, I don't know if I'm going to get rid of that. Unemployment, I mean, interesting, but I don't want to go on introducing facts that that don't relate to whatever it is I'm talking about. I don't really talk about the economy, do I? No, not a ton. Okay, not too shabby second. That's an interesting fact, but I'm going to reword it because I don't like actually how it's written. I don't think it's very strong. I'm going to get rid of, well, actually, I'm going to Control C, get rid of this. I'm going to move this down to the bottom so that if I'm doing my bibliography, I can remember how to reference those later. So what I might do is I don't know what you guys are going to be doing, but I might just say, I'm going to make my, I'm just going to say research, or no, thesis, I don't know, topic, sure. And then Canada is the best country in the world. So I know I could have just changed the font, but whatever. Okay, so I might just move this right into the top of my page, you know, and then I might have like my name would go here, you know, the teacher's block, who cares, whatever it is. Only because I don't want it to be a guessing game. I don't want your teacher to have to be like, what is the topic of this essay? Like, it should be pretty clear right away. And then especially in the introduction, it should kind of stand out. So what we're going to do is we're going to, I'm going to write down what we need. So we need to have our hook. We need to also talk about the three main, let's say, subtopics. I want to have a transition in there somewhere. What else could I do? I don't have to, but I really probably could talk about my sources of information because there's only 3. I could actually put that in there. We'll see how it looks. And then after my hook, I need my thesis. So let's just start with this and see what happens. Okay, so let's go with my hook. And again, this may not be the best hook in the world, but who cares? It's a hook. Let's just come up with, I don't know. Have you ever wondered, this is going to sound terrible, let's start terrible. Have you ever wondered what the best country in the world is? So this is terrible, but it's a hook. Let's try and think of a different idea now, because it's there, it's an idea, but it's kind of weak. Only because it sounds like something a grade 3 person might say. But we won't, you know, aim a little higher maybe. If you're in grade 3, then that's great. If you're not, aim higher. So have you ever wondered what the best country in the world is? No, let's not go to, let's try something else. Is it possible is it possible to summarize a country by a ranking? Let's say according to several, let's go international, no, several agencies, the answer is yes. Who knows? The answer is yes. According to, no, I already have according to, so is it possible to summarize a country by a ranking? According to several agencies, the answer is yes. I've not started by saying Canada is the best country in the world. That would be like aggressive and abrupt. I kind of want to be like, hey, look at my topic. Here's my title. So, is it possible to summarize a country by ranking? According to several agencies, yes. Interestingly, based on, it would seem that Canada is the best country in the world. Now, here's actually something really interesting. According to this research, it says we're second. So this is actually going to be kind of hard to argue. Even though all of this here, my way of saying that we're the best, I really don't have the time and resources to go over all 133 countries and compare. But according to this index, they're saying that it's Canada's second. Things just got tricky. What I might do is get rid of this quote, because if I get rid of it, or, I could either get rid of it to try and maybe like deceive my reader a little bit so that they don't know about this fact, or maybe I address it head on and then refute it. Maybe I'm going to do that because I think that's probably the more honest way to go about doing things. So interesting to see that Canada's, okay. I'm going to say some findings would indicate that Finland is the best country in the world to live. And then in brackets, I'm going to write Ottawa Citizen, so I remember where I got my reference from. And then I can actually get rid of this. Because that was, here, let me undo this so you can see. Here it says, as it stands, we're not too shabby second on the newly released list, blah, 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 trailing only Finland. So I'm taking the idea that Finland is the best, and I'm giving it this reference. That's what I did there, okay? So some findings would indicate that Finland is the best country in the world to live. However, after a closer examination of various data, we can conclude that it is in fact Canada, which is the best nation in which to live. Only because I want to say the best country in the world, but I've already just said best country in the world right here. Like, I don't want to sound stupid. Like, if I'm repeating myself, people are going to think, do you not know any other words or any other way to say this? So, is it possible to summarize a country by a ranking? According to several agencies, the answer is yes. Some findings would indicate that Finland is the best country in the world to live. However, after a closer examination of various data, we can conclude that it is in fact Canada. This is totally my opinion, but I'm trying to use facts to back up my opinion. Which is the best nation in which to live? Interestingly, okay, so I'm going to get rid of this. So this is really my thesis statement. It is in fact Canada, blah, 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 the best nation in which to live. So here, we can come to, we will, I don't know, blah, 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 I don't know yet, by examining the role of the Canadian government, the Canadian society, because again, I'm just simply now going paragraph by paragraph, because my reader wants to know, what am I going to say? Otherwise, if I'm like, I'm going to read this, they might be like, oh, yeah, that's not really what I want to read, and then just decide that's not for them. But if I'm saying we're going to read this, and this, they might be like, oh, that sounds really good. I'm going to keep reading. So I'm going role of Canadian government, Canadian society, and guess what's next? Education. Canadian society and the Canadian education. What am I calling this? I'm forgetting the word. And the Canadian education. Oh, let's just go Canadian education. That's easier. And Canadian education. So now what I've done is I've got my three main subtopics. So what are we going to do? We will blah, blah, blah. We will seek to prove this statement, I don't know, by examining the role of the Canadian government, Canadian society, and Canadian education. The primary, normally what I would do is, normally most essays you're not going to cite only 3 sources. So I would typically say like the primary source is referenced. But even in this case, I don't know if I even want to do this, especially because they can look it up in a bibliography. So when it comes to sources of information, I think I'm actually going to get rid of this. Because it's, as you can see, a short essay. I don't really need to have that in there. But I suppose I could put it in there just to show you what it would look like. Let's just put it in there. The primary sources of information analyzed were found on Wikipedia, Stats Canada, and the Ottawa Citizen. So now, here's my dilemma. I have to now have a transition. I can't just leave it there and then be like, end of the introduction, new paragraph. It's kind of awkward. So, what can my transition be? Something to do with the word government. This actually is awkward, having this in here. So having said that, you can see this is how I would have written it. I'm going to take this out. Because it's such a short essay. If it were like a longer 20-page essay, I'd probably want to put something in there. But what I might do is I might reverse these categories. I might just say by examining the, let's go Canadian society, Canadian education, and, whoops, the role of the Canadian government. So now I need some kind of transition. This is tough. What do I want to say? A government is, Let's read again. Is it possible to summarize a country by a ranking? According to several agencies, the answer is yes. Some findings would indicate that Finland is the best country in the world to live. However, after a closer examination of various data, we can conclude that it is in fact Canada, which is the best nation in which to live. We will seek to prove the statement by examining Canadian society, Canadian education, and the role of the Canadian government. A government is the pillar of society, and in this case, the pillar of the best society. I don't know. I think that sounds kind of fancy. Because what I'm trying to do is, again, I'm trying to outline the fact that Canada is the best. I need to talk about government because this is my next body paragraph. So I'm now going to get rid of the word government because I don't really want titles on my essay because I don't know why. Titles are nice, but whatever. What is this? Canada's most okay, this is the last part of it. So this is, in theory, we're done. All I would have to do is go through, make sure all my references were done, make sure my bibliography was tidied up. And there we go. There would be, sorry. I lied. We need a conclusion. I hate writing conclusions. In conclusion, this is what I do. This is a terrible little trick. I take my paragraph, my introduction, I'm going to copy it, I'm going to paste it here, and I'm going to rework it. So, in conclusion, we can see that that not only are countries ranked, but that Canada typically outperforms most countries on the list. Because again, I'm trying to say that, there's the ranking, blah, 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 because I know I talked about that. So we're going to do the vision. Okay, so we're going to talk about, Canadian society. I now need to, because again, no new information, but I'm going to kind of summarize a little bit. So the Canadian government, Canadian society, and Canadian education, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to have to come up with some statement to, again, prove that it's the best country. All help to make Canada the best country in which to live. Typically now what happens is we want to try and end with like maybe a question that makes us think, or maybe some kind of other quote. That's really hard to do in this case. Because what other question can I ask? Let's see. In conclusion, we can see that not only are our country's ranked, but that Canada typically outperforms most countries on the list. The Canadian government, Canadian society, and Canadian, I don't even need Canadian government, Canadian society, and Canadian education all help to make Canada the best country in which to live. Let's just say we have a tradition, which is a fact. I don't know the exact number, but I want to say we've been like first for the last like decade or something. So we have a tradition of being the number one country in which to live. Is this a trend that we can expect, I don't know, to continue? Is being, I don't know, incredible part of our heritage. I don't know. Who knows? I'm trying to be like philosophical, but I don't know if it worked. So let's read again. In conclusion, we can see that not only are countries ranked, but that Canada typically outperforms most countries on the list. Canadian government, Canadian society, and Canadian education all help to make Canada the best country in which to live. We have a tradition of being the number one country in which to live. I've said live far too often. The number one country in the world. Did I say the world? In the world? No, not yet. In the world. So let's read again. In conclusion, we can see that not only are countries ranked, but that Canada typically outperforms most countries on the list. Canadian government, Canadian society, and Canadian education all help to make Canada the best country in which to live. We have a tradition of being the number one country in the world. Is this a trend that we can expect to continue? Is being incredible part of our heritage? Let's say incredible is being the best. I don't know, part of our heritage. It almost sounds snobby now. I was trying to be proud before, but now I sound snotty. Oh well, whatever. Okay, so then in theory, this would be our essay. You know, kind of a basic high school research essay, as you guys can see. Tips though, I would encourage you to use books, not just internet resources, and try and use multiple sources so that you can show that you know, you're able to research not just with Wikipedia like I did. Okay, thank you. There we are.